All right. So welcome to our presentation. We've got the long title at the top, but in essence, our action research project this year has been about exploring and bridging skills gaps for functional skills level 1 achievers, so those who have passed functional skills level 1, who are now in a GCSE maths classroom. I'll just quickly show you the results of the Mentimeter that you've been filling out ahead of the session, which is brilliant. So we've got a word cloud. So these are the topics that you think functional skills level 1 achievers would struggle with in a GCSE maths classroom post 16. So we've got the big topics in the middle. And we've also got, so I can see some results coming in now as well. Great. And then we've also got, so the vast majority of you believe that those who have achieved GCSE grade 3 will be more successful in GCSE maths overall this year. So these are two questions we've asked you because these are two questions that we asked ourselves at the beginning of our journey. And on screen, once I go back to the PowerPoint,
Liz, we weren't able to see those results.
Oh no, I'm so sorry. Do you want me to do that again?
That's fine. If you can get them on screen, that's fine.
Yeah.
You might just need to sort of stop sharing.
I think I need to stop sharing and resharing.
That's it.
Really sorry. So screen 2. Let's see, share. And so hopefully if I drag this in, can you see that now?
Not yet, but not to worry. If you just read out the key concepts and I'll pop the sharing link on.
Let me just, it really should. So screen 2, if I do that and then share, and if I bring this over.
Ah, perfect.
There we go.
Well
okay,
done.
Perfect. Sorry about that. I just wanted to, so this was the results of these functional skills level 1 achievers. Sorry about the technical hitch there. Didn't happen earlier. And so we've got the big ones in the middle, algebra, ratio, fractions. And then in terms of your results, the vast majority of you, as I said, have selected GCSE grade 3 achievers to be more successful overall this year. As I say, you'll see what we thought a little bit later in the presentation for our initial findings. And we're going to be also exploring this statement on the left here. Hopefully you can see my PowerPoint now again. Perfect, good. It's a pretty bold statement. And I'm going to hand over to Ella.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm going to tell you who we are and why we decided to do this research. So we are 6 teachers from 4 large London colleges with different levels of experience, both in teaching and action research. We deliver both functional skills and GCSE at our colleges. And we have very diverse students coming from a variety of different backgrounds. We decided to do this research because we find it very challenging to teach learners with very diverse entry qualifications. We all expected that level 1 students will struggle compared to GCSE students, but most importantly, we wanted to develop the resources and strategies to support the progress of all learners. To begin with, we all did some reading and research to contribute to our literature review. And the key conclusions were, it is very important to use formative assessment to monitor progress and identify any gaps. It's also very important to know the background of our students in order to respond to their individual needs and help them to gain deep understanding. We've decided to focus on bar modeling. It is also very important to be mindful of the confidence levels of our students. And we need to use diagnostic questions to assess the knowledge and understanding, as well as to identify any misconceptions. So I'm going to hand over to Liz now.
So our action research can be broken down into 3 cycles. We've got cycle 1 with the literature review that we did that Ella's just mentioned, and we also looked at discovering the baseline skills and thoughts of our students with some baseline analysis. Going into cycle 2, we carried out in-depth diagnostic interventions and interviews focusing on our functional skills level 1 achievers and preparing our teacher skills for cycle 3 with bespoke CPD from Martin Newton at MEI. And then in cycle 3, we collaboratively designed and carried out bar modelling interventions to address the skills gaps that we'd identified with support from Martin. And we analysed our impact. This analysis is ongoing still. So I'm just going to talk you through a little bit more in more depth about cycle 1. For cycle 1, each teacher did their own analysis of the baseline diagnostics that learners had already done in their classrooms, but we did use the Ask Skills Identification Framework to standardise our findings. We also carried out an initial learner questionnaire, as well as an initial teacher questionnaire, which included the 2 questions that you were asked on the Mentimeter. So I'm going to pass back to Ella for the findings.
So here is some information about our students' background. So 2/5 of them are level 1 students. Before studying level 1, most students achieved either functional skills entry 3 or GCSE grade 1 or 2. A third of our learners don't consider English to be their first language. And here is the list of the topics that our students said they struggled with the ratio being the main one. So here is what the teachers' initial views were. So we estimated that a quarter of students achieved functional skills level 1. We thought that our level 1 students were overall weaker than grade 3 students. And we also thought that level 1 students would struggle with topics such as algebra as being the main one. But on the other hand, our diagnostic assessment showed that level 1 students were not at grade 4 standard, but they perform much more better than GCSE learners. All students struggled with topics of ratio and proportion, and most level 1 students were weaker in topics of algebra, factors, multiples, as well as volume. Those results were really surprising and contradicted to what our assumptions were at the beginning. Now over to Liz again.
So looking at cycle 2, we decided to assess skills gaps in particular areas, algebra, volume, and multiples, because those were the 3 key areas that our functional skills level 1 achievers were struggling with, to give us rich comparative data between GCSE grade 3 and functional skills level 1 achievers. Using scaffolded diagnostic intervention assessments that you can see here on the left-hand side, we could identify where those functional skills level 1 achievers and the GCSE learners who were doing them at the same time were struggling. So for example, this learner, you can see that they're using listing as their main strategy and not using factor trees. We analysed the results of these in-depth diagnostic interventions and interviews with functional skills level 1 achievers about the assessments, and we found some quite surprising results. So for algebra, as expected, you can see that functional skills level 1 achievers showed lower skills than GCSE grade 3 achievers. However, their confidence levels on the bottom, they've rated it mainly as gold confidence for their algebra assessment with some bronze rating. So this shows their confidence levels were quite high for the algebra assessments. And we think that this might be because the functional skills level 1 achievers didn't have the same concept of what the algebraic questions sort of would be compared to the questions that we gave them. For volume, the functional skills level 1 achievers surprisingly did quite a lot better than GCSE grade 3 achievers, but this might have been due to the scaffolded nature of the questions. For multiples, functional skills level 1 achiever results were really not too different from the GCSE grade 3 achievers. Again, sort of some surprising compared to our cycle 1 results. But we did find that all learners struggled with worded problem solving style questions, and from cycle 1 all learners functional skills level 1 and GCSE grade 3 achievers struggled with ratio. So for cycle 3, we still wanted to focus on the functional skills level 1 achievers, but we decided to trial the interventions with all the learners in the GCSE class, aimed at supporting problem solving skills for questions including algebra and incorporating scaffolding into their interventions. Over to Maddie for cycle 3.
Thank you. Going to cycle 3, we designed pre and post intervention formative assessment based on the MEI post 16 contextualized GCSE assessments. One with context-based questions and a matching set converted into algebraic questions with a standardized mark scheme and assessment tracking grid. We also did look at misconceptions to inform our planning. Each wrong answer was mapped to a misconception. We collected data by pre and post intervention teacher questionnaires, teacher reflection logs, paired observations of lesson with observation schedule, and post-intervention learners' reflections form. We asked our learners which assessment was more accessible for them. They all stated that they were more confident with the context-based questions. We collaboratively planned intervention lesson using bar modeling as an intervention strategy to address key gaps identified from pre-assessments. Stronger learners were asked to develop and share their method. Paired observation of lesson delivering bar modeling were scheduled. Evidence of students' work were collected. The bar modeling was planned as a starter activity with basic and visual questions to ease off their starting point and engage all learners, and then developing from context-based question to algebraic question with a visual and more tangible way for students. There was an interesting outcome. After the bar modeling activity, when the students were asked which one is easier now, context-based questions or algebra-based questions, some stated the algebra is easier as it requires less work. Surprisingly, the data collected from pre and post intervention tests shows great progress made by level 1 learners. 33.8% increase in context-based questions result and significant 91% increase in algebra questions result. At the start, level 1 learners were mostly reluctant to use the bar modeling method. However, gradually they started to use and enjoy the method. This led to a better understanding of algebra questions and makes it more tangible to the learners. Although intervention activity had positive impact on both groups' progress, the level 1 learners significantly showed a better progress in algebra. This probably was because of more engagement of level 1 learners using bar modeling, while grade 3 students were preferred to stick to their own old method. Also, we need to consider that some of level 1 learners have ESOL backgrounds, and while their language of math skills improves in class, their math skills improves as well. Now, here is the teacher reflections, some comment. A student responded better on context-based questions. Teachers believe that the bar modeling is very effective, but more time is needed to master it. Very effective for group works as it promotes discussion. Lower ability students were more willing to engage with bar modeling. It helps a student visualize the problem and understand the concept more. Learners need more practice and support with algebra questions. Teachers said that the intervention was more effective with ratio topics, and this is the learners agreed as well. They felt more effect with the ratio questions. And here is some students' reflection. Just under half of the students agreed that bar modeling helped understanding in areas they weren't confident in, and that the matching task helped them learn how to bar model. Just over a third agreed that bar modeling helped them apply knowledge from one area to another. But over half agreed that sharing their own method was a helpful way of learning. And around 80% would use or might use bar modeling even when they are confident with their own old method. Back to Liz for summarize.
So we've just got a couple of slides left. And for our overall key findings across the cycles, most teachers agreed that the diagnostic interventions were useful for identifying learner skills gaps and identifying the why behind learner struggles. All teachers agreed the engagement with learners sharing their own methods improved over the course of the project and did support learner understanding. And teachers do feel that all the methods and activities trialed during the Action Research project contributed somehow to learners' overall understanding. In terms of bar modelling, there was a mixed response. All teachers felt that bar modelling was a good method for developing learner understanding, but we saw that learners had a mixed response to bar modelling. However, we did see that learner understanding did improve. Specifically for those functional skills level 1 achievers, 5 out of 6 of the Action Research teachers believed that bar modelling was effective in addressing their skills gaps. And even from short intervention period, we are seeing some independent learner use of bar models. The wider impact on teachers from the Action Research project held some positives that you can see on the screen in the bottom right there. And the CPD that was provided particularly impacted teachers' ability to address skills gaps and support their learners to apply their knowledge in mathematical areas. All teachers felt that being part of the project benefited their learners. So key recommendations and what next? So for our key recommendations, we've got some specific to bar modelling. So highly recommend starting bar modelling interventions as soon as you can in the year, starting with simpler topics before moving on, being consistent and frequent in your usage. Overall recommendations planning for more time. We've been more consistent with carrying out the interventions and surveys. This was various factors affected this. And we also felt it'd be worth carrying out the interventions with all of the teaching groups and unpicking misconceptions throughout the year. Next steps, 5 out of 6 teachers feel they've had enough support to carry out their own smaller scale project in the future, and all 6 said that they would continue to use bar modelling and learners sharing their own methods in the class. So for cycle 3.5, we are currently ongoing monitoring the usage of bar modelling, and we're collecting in some further specific reflections about their GCSE exams. So thank you very much. We'll now we'll take questions later, and we would just like to point you to some key wider reading from our literature review. Apologies for going over time due to some technical difficulties earlier.